Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And for today's adventure I've come to this incredible coastal paradise here of Angus, kind of between Arbroath and Montrose, and it's one of my favourite areas of coast. I'm kind of limited as to where I can go for adventures just now, because as you can see through this road, everything's just proper flooded out, and it's going to be a treacherous walk going down this path here because it looks proper flooded out. But for today's adventure I've basically come to this piece of coast just to see if anything's changed with the recent storms, because I ken that there's been a lot of landslides and crazy changes in the land caused from the heavy rain that we've had. And I thought it would be a fun wee adventure to try and come down and just document the coast and the wee historical details along the way. And another thing, on the Christmas special, I parked at Ousing and I was going to try and walk around the coast to the ruins of a little cottage. So I thought on today's video, that's my main goal. I want to try and get along to the ruined cottage and just explore the wild coast basically on the way. I think most of the walk I'll have to try and go along the side of the field, but I wanted to go right down to the water's edge and document the wild sea, because in my last coastal video I was never actually over right at the edge of the sea to see the waves close up. So yeah, in today's video folks, here we are, we're out here once again, and there's a crazy mist over the sea in front of me, and just check how waterlogged this path actually is. Crazy scenes folks. Anyway, I'll update you once I'm further down here. So check it out folks, we've got this ancient graveyard here at the top of the cliff, and there's two crows sitting on top of the gravestones, and they're almost the guardians here of the cemetery, this ancient hilltop cemetery. And just look at this. I love coming here because when I first became a YouTuber I used to come down here quite a lot and make wee videos and stuff when I was learning the craft. So it's so cool to come back today and just see these lands once again for a whole fresh adventure. And it's crazy because every time you come back somewhere you just see new things or different things that you had never seen before. The waves crashing into the rocks, I don't know if that comes out in the audio. The sea's just absolutely roaring down there today folks, so I'm way to head on around. We'll take a quick look in this graveyard. There's actually a unique gravestone here, which is the boy was born after he had died, as far as the dates are written on. And some say it was an ancient mistake, but gravestones were so expensive to make back in the day that the correction was never made. Yeah, look, born 1859, died 1840. So that's a cool historical detail with this graveyard. I don't know if you just heard that noise in the background, but wow, literally some of these waves down here are a way to be absolutely insane today folks. See, when you come down to an area like this, obviously you hate to keep it safe because it's really dangerous, but if you're in a safe area viewing the sea, it's just one of the most incredible feats of nature itself. And the waves today are just pounding the shores here, and that's what gives it the wild character. Check it out folks, this is inside one of these ancient tombs here at the top of the hill, and look how nature takes back over with this mad ivy. And then even the way this old rusty gate still hangs here, some of the details now corroded fully away. Look at the neck of that, it's just about fully corroded right off of there. And look at the corrosion on that, it's just about right through. No way, there's a train, look, going up the east coast main line here of Scotland. And the crazy thing with this graveyard, it's right on the edge of this cliff. That's why I love often just taking a wee walk around here before I go around the main coast here. Wow, look at this. So much water running off the land. On a day like today, it's just insanity. I'm obviously going to be careful here because we're at the top of what is a massive cliff. Sad to see that folks, that's the top stone off this gravestone here, and it would be good if somebody was to put it back up into its original position. just to maintain the history of that little bit. Those ancient stones from the 1800s and ancient times, it's cool to preserve them. If the old stone top's just sitting right there, it would be cool to see it back in its original position. Anyway, I'm waiting to head on around this little coastal land here. You can see how with the water erosion, bits of this dike and stuff's falling away. But there's a whole new detail. There's a little coastal path takes you from here all the way to Ozen around the bottom of the field. But today it looks so flooded. But I think recently it's been washed out to a certain degree that they've actually had to put a little bridge. And I'm not sure who would have paid for this. This is a brand new feature here on this bit of land. So shout out whoever put that there. It's a safer way of navigating. Look at that, folks, for a postcard scene of Scotland. It's just incredible to see Elephant Rock down in the foreground here, and then leading off to the distance with a Bodden lime kiln. And then the sea over behind that area is the Lunan Bay area here on the east of Scotland. So way in the distance here, folks, down on that foggy piece of coast at the far end is our destination on this adventure. There's little remains of what must have been a little fishery cottage, and it's cool often to go to a place like that and document it before it's fully gone. You can imagine maybe a wee fishing community down in this area from an ancient time. Most of the land around the wee house now washed out for the sea, just leaving the skeleton or scar of the history to tell the wee story on the east coast here. Look at this, here's actual sea foam here. And that shows when the waves is extreme, that blasts the sea foam up to this high height. So that's a sign that the waves are about to be absolutely crazy down here, folks. So this piece of land here, I was most curious to see, because I thought this is the most likely area to be washed away or landslid down. It looks like there is a fresh bit of land here falling down the hill. I would love to actually go down to this area to start with here and have a look. I think that's what we'll do, folks. We'll go down here and then we'll come back up and go further along in a minute, because I want to document this fresh coastal erosion, but at the same time I want to be careful not to be in some coastal erosion myself. No way, look at these waves, holy smokes, this is absolutely crazy, folks. The waves is coming fleeing up these rocks. The quantity of water within those waves is just of biblical proportions right there. Wow, this ground can be so fragile and it can actually landslide at any moment. Wow, yeah, I can see it's not actually as bad here as what I was thinking, but the fence and stuff's totally dropped and there is some earth out of that hole. Look at this for our first incredible viewpoint here, down at sea level. This is one of the areas I used to love coming here to watch the waves, because they can actually at certain times fly super high in the air here. And here's some big ones coming right now. It's amazing to see the way they roll in like that. Whoa, look at that, you see what I mean, folks? That is just so cool. And obviously you get a great view of them going into that bay. Yeah, some of the waves out there today are probably like 20 foot high, I would say, over towards the lime kiln in the distance. And it's just action. Sometimes when you watch the waves, folks, it's like watching the Grand Prix or something like that. It's just crazy non-stop. Rip colours. And I'll tell you something, right now, this second, there's loads of big, massive waves right here coming in. So I'm just going to keep the camera rolling. That's the thing, the waves do come and go. Look at this one right here, holy smokes. Whoa. It's almost nerve-wracking, folks. That's the furthest the water's even been up onto that. I'm obviously standing at a safe area. The crazy thing is the amount the sea level drops in the front of the water before a wave like this comes in. Wow, I'm just breathtaking from the scenery. Around Scotland, you can just become like awestruck by often what you see. often just spending a couple of like moments in a place like this, it's just mad. It's like being in the scene of the craziest movie. Check it out, folks. In areas like this, it's almost being like in an alien planet here made of rock. Some parts of this coast, everywhere you go, it's just like this. And look at the way it's like worn in here and carved up and round. Whoa, these waves coming in here are scary, like. Whoa! Holy smokes, folks. This is so cool to see. I'm obviously trying to stay safe. But like that area down there is one of the areas I used to go to watch the waves. Sometimes when me and the channel DJ used to go down, that's where we stood. Because it used to shelter us from the rain. And it was heavy rain just no so long ago. That's how I've put like the old hat and stuff on for this video. Yeah, some of these big waves, they come right up. And then next minute, all the other ones are only coming to this height. And that's how you can't trust the sea often. Again, it looks like often the waves are a certain height and then you get one big one just ripping in, like this one here. It's a ferocious postcard scene, folks. Wow, I say wow so many times on a video like this, but it is true. I'm just blown away by what I'm seeing. I need to now head further up the sea, further up the coast, and we need to make it to that little cottage. Every time I'm waiting to switch the camera off, I just see like a bigger wave and a more impressive one, like this monster which is out here right now. Check it out, folks. We've made it to the super wild area of coast here, which has got this little cottage. And I love coming to this spot. And today, the way the waves is fleeing up in the air, it's just incredible. You can imagine the people sitting, looking out their front window over this wild sea. And it's just a ferocious scene. There's no way of describing it. And I love to see the history hidden within that scene. It's the truest of wild Scotland right here. And when you find a little building within it, it's just so special, folks. Look at this, the way the waves come into these little channels. They often come flying up in the air and little bits like that. So check this out, just imagine like 1700s or whatever, a house like this constructed, probably a lot more land out in front of it before the sea had like washed it away to a certain degree. Often with the really old maps you notice that there's more land at these coastal areas, which year on year gets taken, and one day this house here will also get taken. And these videos document how the house looks to this day, and it's impressive to see. It's actually built out of stones cut from the wild coastal rock around here. And another interesting detail, which could be an artifact of history, if there had been more buildings over here on a piece of grass or whatever, they'll now be washed away in the sea, and that history will now be gone. So this could have at one time been a little coastal croft out here in the ancient days. Whereas now any other remains of other buildings or whatever is just totally gone. The sea's so close to the front of the door of this place, it's just mad. And it's a shame to see that so much of this has been knocked down over the years. Probably when the sea level gets higher than that, this will be getting hit from the waves. Wow, look at this old wall, folks. Just think about the fishing family which may have sat within a little house like this. Maybe even fishermen coming into a building at a later time to mend their fishing nets. There's loads of midges and things like flying about in this little area behind the wall, and they're circling me. They've probably been waiting for a living creature to come down here so they could actually bite them, because that's what a lot of the beasties are wanting to do. Look at the way this stonework is though, it's impressive to see. It's all little stones and big stones, and it looks like the sort of limestone mortar they were using in the late like 1700s and times like that. So it is an interesting little structure here. And like I say, I was fancying a wee adventure like along the coast, and I was going to come here on my Christmas special, but I was going to come from the different direction. but that day the tide was so far in I couldn't make the journey safely. And even today, this is just intense, seeing the way these waves like fly in the air over these rocks. Imagine sitting looking out at the front door of your house in the morning, if this is where you live, with your cup of coffee, just seeing what the waves were bringing. Maybe at a certain time the people that lived here had their boat harboured into a little docking area around the corner here. Maybe at one of these little coves or bays. See in the distance, when you look around, I can see like a ship in the distance just left Montrose harbour. And when I look down towards the lime kiln, I can see silhouettes of people out for a New Year's walk. And I just love the way the coastal rocks look as they disappear into the mist. Obviously the further rocks getting more faint in the sea haze. Yeah, and the atmosphere of a place like this, folks, I just love it. And I love being able to share it on videos. The waves down there are hitting the rocks and literally flying, I would say, like 30 metres in the air. And sometimes when you're at the coast in conditions like this, you get covered in the water even for a long distance away. These are some massive waves right here. Look at these ones. When they get to this rock, it's going to be insane. Wow. See, the waves aren't just constant. That's what I always say. If you stick around at a certain area for long enough on a day like this, some massive ones come in. And like the quantity of water flying in the air with a thing like that, it's just of biblical proportions. Check this out. Look at the way this little window here is. Hardly any of the remains left. Maybe a little door leading in the middle here. Often these sorts of buildings were just a couple of rooms. Maybe a little wooden shed out here for their outhouse. But I believe the house would have come right along here, and it was built, this is an interesting architectural detail here, it was built right onto the edge of this. This is like a natural piece of bedrock. And that's interesting to see, that remains there of this little fishing bothy, we could even call it. It looks like this chunk here on the ground could be from this end wall when it finally gave way. It probably had a little fire or a wee chimney there. Because for sure on the cold nights when they were in mending their fishing lines or whatever they were doing, they would hear the wee fire crackling away. Most of this east coast area of Scotland is predominantly like fishing traditionally when these places were in their prime. And yeah, wow, it's just so cool. Look at the way this wall is just standing. It would just take the wrong like breath of wind or a massive wave and it would just blow right down. This is the more weathered side here, and it's cool to see how the coastal rock here has been used to build this house. That's a detail. I can't remember if I noticed that the last time, but we'll go and take a look at some of that rock over here on the way back up. For the return leg, I'm going to actually go a cool little bit through one of these bays. There's a little path, well, it's not even a path, but there is a route I can kind of go, and I'm thinking that's the way I'm going to go for the rest of this adventure. The adventure's not over yet, folks. It's crazy sometimes the places I go, and like when I turn around and see that behind me, it's insanity, folks. Look, you really get to see the old limestone mortar there between the stones. And then look at the erosion on the brickwork right there. That's the kind of details that I love to see. The coastal weathers has just like eroded that to a certain degree. Whereas you can see the original coastal rocks don't erode nearly as fast. And that'll be another reason that a lot of these more ancient details are missing from this place. Any old like wooden window frames and doors and stuff would just rot away so fast because of the conditions that they have to put up with day in and day out. Wow, every time I look around I just pause for a minute, because what I'm seeing is like something that's like, I can't even believe that this is on my doorstep often, stuff like this. Because I grew up in a town which didn't have a coastal area or whatever, when I do see the waves and stuff like that, I'm just blown away, folks. And on a day like today, it's just constant and dangerous. I was kind of wanting to go and look down here because there's a little gully, but there's a fair chance I could actually get soaked. It's all these fissures in the rocks here. Yeah, I can actually feel the water in the air here because I'm so near where the waves are. Yeah, there's a cool little bit here I'll go and document before we go on that mad little route. Look at this, folks, there's massive chunks of that coastal rock here, the same as what the house is made of. But the interesting thing with these pieces here, it's almost like there's been an explosion and all that's been blasted up. But that's actually caused from the force of the waves. These rocks are obviously so fragile, when these massive waves hit them, the rocks come flying in the air, and if you were walking at the wrong area at a time like that, you'd be getting hit on the head for stuff like that. And I think, look, this is where the rocks have come from. This looks like the most freshly eroded area here. Yeah, this whole area has been getting hit by the waves. I was just going to have a wee peek over here. Wow. Yeah, this has all been madly eroded around here. But that's how this ground has been shaped originally. This used to be one of the areas that I came to watch the waves. I would climb up to the top of that, but I didn't trust how fragile the rocks are. Look at it here. Wow. The surround sound in a place like this is something that won't come across fully on the video, folks. The noise when the waves is hitting the rocks like that. And then you can hear it feel like, look at that there, wow. Yeah, you hear it from just all angles in a place like this. Yeah, that can be the risk, like what we saw there with the water spraying really high in one area. That's like, if two waves combine, it becomes obviously a wave which is like twice the height, and it can totally pinpoint one area with a massive amount of water. And I've actually been soaked with that before when I've been at the coast. Anyway, let's head on with this adventure, folks. I'm way to head along to the next area of interest. Check this out, folks. Lying in the field right here, there's a fish. Can you even believe that? That fish right there has been washed up into the field. Wow. I can't even believe that right there. Who would have known it? That looks like a deep sea fish right there, which has probably come fleeing through the air up to this point. So that just goes to show, folks, you never know what you're going to see on these adventures. And like, you have to think that it's just because it's a little fish there, it's come flying up through the air and landed here from the force of the waves. Crazy. You do get obviously fish that can be dropped from a barrel or whatever, but I think in this situation that's where the fish has come from, via storm. Check this out, folks. This is a cool little cove here. This is the bit that's like a path, but it's like an unofficial path. There's kind of a route around the mad coast here. But look at this. Here's evidence of a massive landslide here at this corner. And look at the fog here in this little bay. It's mad to think the short distance. It shows the amount of haze which is in the air today. Wow. Check this out, folks. This is the little route around the side here, and it's just a paradise scene here of Scotland. There is a mad bit of froth here being washed up, but look at this. Here's evidence of another landslide here, and this time it's quite a big fresh one. I think last year there was a tiny little avalanche at this area. I say avalanche, I mean to say landslide, folks. There's a big difference. An avalanche is obviously snow, whereas the landslides like this is the land here. The heavy saturated earth slides off the top of the solid sandstone bedrock, or whatever type of bedrock it is. Sometimes even volcanic in nature in places like this. Anyway, let's head on round. I'm just going to try and stay at this height here on the rocks, navigate my way around this mad coastal land. And yeah, look how much this has changed. There's actually a stream running through that, and that'll be the reason it's given way. The ground's so saturated, you can see even the bushes and stuff still here, and they'll probably keep growing down here at the bottom of the hill. Wow, there's so much earth and stuff down at this level. Yeah, this is super fresh because the waves would wash this away otherwise. And then that's how I'm wary about other bits like this here giving way. You always have to be looking over your shoulder in places like this. One side it's the wild sea, mad froth and big waves. The other side, rocky coast, crazy landslide risks. Yeah, the amount of earth that's been washed even into this area. See, that's how new habitats and ecosystems even start up. If the sea doesn't wash that away for ages, then it'll be green and growing with wildlife and nature. Yeah, I'm always wary of this rock face here to my right. I need to just keep it moving at this point of the adventure. Yeah, this is like the little forgotten cove. It's so hard to navigate to areas like this that it's just off the beaten path really. In the summer it's a peaceful spot with the waves rolling in. In the winter it's a ferocious wilderness. Did you hear that bang that came from the sea? It maybe didn't even come out in the audio, but it's like there's a massive rock moves around, or a hole in the rock that the water goes flying into. At this side here as well we've got a little waterfall. That's some absolutely massive waves coming into the cove now, folks. It's mad. In this area of the coast you get different coloured rocks here in the different bays. This is quite a red rock, whereas further round it's more of a purpley dark coloured rock. Anyway, I'm going to head on round this crazy bit of coast. It's kind of a mixture of bedrock and pebbles at this point. So I'm going to head on round a little bit and then I'll update you folks. It's mad to see those avalanches and how much the land constantly changes. There's now bushes down there at the bottom of the hill where it used to just be a wild rocky piece of terrain. So what video would be complete without a piece of World War II history, folks? And here it is. This interesting little bit in the ground here that looks like it's a dip. There's actually some interesting historical wonders down the hill. It's been pushed or bulldozed down the hill after the war. And that's a little defensive position built by the Home Guard, no more than a little cement plinth. So if ever a beach like this came under attack, an area like this could defend it from the side of the hill. And that's the evidence that we see at this time of year to a great degree. There's a whole heap of cement there, a massive pile, and then this dip in the ground shows its original location here in the land. Each little cove which was easily landed upon by the Germans had to be defended, and that's why we see evidence of it. Little areas like that in the coast of Angus and all over the coast of Scotland. It's just breathtaking. It's like history from all eras. So now I've made it as far back around as the old graveyard here that we started at pretty much on this adventure, and now you can see how the sky has changed. It's a different scene out here. As the day progresses the weather changes, but the fog and the massive waves remain. I think potentially the waves are not quite as big as when I first arrived here. It was incredible to see, but now as the day moves on, they maybe are calming down a bit. This is an interesting old railway line here on the east of Scotland, first constructed in the 1800s, back in the days of the steam trains, and then it was just a single line originally, and then years later it was converted and changed to have double the tracks, and so now there's obviously the same dual track system up here. But it's amazing to see these old bridges and the way they're constructed. It's the same original bridge at one side, and then they just added on the second half of the bridge at the later time, like in the 1900s or whatever. And look, you can see the two differences with the old brick and then the original stone blocks. And an interesting detail with this old bridge, there's actually graffiti here scored in from ancient times, like 1908. Think about that, folks, 1908, and look, 1928. So just think about those two dates alone, like how long this has been here, and the folk that's walked past. Look, 1921 or something like that. I just think the folk that scored that in were probably out on a leisurely walk, maybe from Montrose or Ferry Den, or maybe even fishermen that had their boats docked down here next to Elephant Rock at an ancient time, because there is metal poles in the ground there which must have been originally designed for tying the little boats to back in the days of the fishing. Look at this, folks, see the trees at the coast, they've got a different character to the inland trees, and it must be caused by the amount of strong winds and different conditions they have to deal with. Most of the tree leaves are actually up at the top facing the sky, and that's the character you see all over the place in Scotland at these coastal lands. And also another detail, within this saturated land all the silt and earth's been washed down to the bottom of the field there, and that's what I've seen in a lot of places this year on farms. Some farmers' crops will be totally ruined and buried, some of them will be rotted out. On a wet year like this, it's just sad to see. So this is maybe how all main roads used to look in Scotland at a certain time. You have to imagine back in the day when it was just horse and carts or people on foot, maybe making their way down to that little cottage that we saw down at the water's edge in the early 1700s or whatever. And then at later times, obviously, the land was developed and changed, but it's cool often on a road like this just to imagine those ancient times and how the ground must have been so extreme in certain weather conditions. Right folks, that's me just about back at my car, so I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next adventure, wherever I end up going in this mad Scottish landscape. We'll see you soon, folks.